Welcome, and thank you for joining our webinar on Positiveinfluencer.ca. I'm Nicole Boulanger, registered dietitian here at BANA.
And I'm Trisha Wilson, registered dietitian at the Windsor-Essex Community Health Center, Teen Health.
Today we're here to talk to you a bit about the diet industry and the truth about healthy eating.
So we thought we would start with sharing some facts on the diet industry. This here is an article from ABC News in 2012 titled 100 Million Fuel the $20 Billion Diet Industry. So as the title explains, 100 million people in the U.S., this was looking at the U.S. in particular, 100 million people were fueling a $20 billion diet industry, meaning fad diets, diet pills, diet products, diet services. So what we thought was really interesting here too was $500,000 to $3 million was the amount of money paid to celebrity endorsers for endorsing these diets. And even more specifically, $33,000 was the amount of money paid to celebrities on average per pound lost. What's interesting here is we don't have any support, we don't have any proof to that these diets were actually in fact the cause of the weight loss, and $33,000, that's a lot of money for 1 pound lost. So kind of interesting. So on the flip side, so we know people are spending tons of money in the diet industry. Lots of people are dieting. Is it even effective? Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of evidence, generally speaking, to prove that these fad diets are effective in the long term anyways. And this article was just kind of a brief snapshot proving exactly that. So this here is an article from the Canadian Heart and Stroke Foundation titled Canadians Trapped on Weight Loss Roller Coaster. And what they found was a survey of almost 2,000 Canadians found that 62% reported intentionally losing 5 or more pounds over the past 5 years, but failed to keep it off. And 70% of those who were overweight or obese actually regained all or even more pounds after their weight loss efforts. So again, just speaks to the ineffectiveness of these diets long term. We may lose 5 pounds, in the first few weeks, but it doesn't last. It's what we call yo-yo dieting or weight cycling, and we see it often.
Now, after learning about the ineffectiveness of dieting, it's also important to consider the consequences to dieting. This happens often among our youth with dieting and eating disorders. So eating disorders are not uncommon among our adolescents. So here are some stats on dieting and eating disorders. Body dissatisfaction and weight change behaviors have been shown to predict later physical and mental health difficulties, including weight gain and obesity on the one hand, and the development of eating disorders on the other. Also, adolescent girls who diet are at 324% greater risk for obesity than those who do not diet. In another study of 14 to 15-year-old adolescents, girls who engaged in strict dieting practices were 18 times more likely to develop an eating disorder within 6 months, opposed to their non-dieting counterparts. So to summarize, we know that diets are not effective in the long term, but we spend so much, our society spends so much money on them, and they come with a lot of negative effects on our physical, mental, and social health and well-being.
So after learning about the ineffectiveness of all these fad diets, we see this nutrition information everywhere we look, and we're wondering, who do we listen to and what do we actually do? So looking at the truth about healthy eating and what we should actually be doing. So as registered dietitians, we generally teach that a healthy diet, healthy eating, is comprised of 4 different factors. So those factors are meal pattern, variety, balance, and intuitive eating. We're going to look at each of these 4 factors in more detail.
So starting with meal pattern, what we mean by that is it's really how your meals and snacks are spread throughout the day. So we recommend a regular eating pattern. And this is eating every 3 to 4 hours, starting with breakfast within at least an hour of waking up. And you're wanting to have about 3 meals and 2 to 3 snacks in a day. The reason this is important is, for one, it keeps our metabolism going, and that's helpful in maintaining a healthy weight. Also, it allows for intuitive eating, so recognizing our hunger and fullness signals. And also, lastly, for adequate nutrition. So really, to meet our nutritional needs, we need to be eating regularly. So if you skip a meal, it's really a missed opportunity to get the nutrition that we need.
So variety. Variety is the second factor, and for variety we're actually going to refer to Canada's Food Guide. So Canada's Food Guide can be accessed for free on the Health Canada website. Canada's Food Guide is actually a nice tool when looking at variety, because it actually, just on the front alone, it actually breaks down foods into the 4 food groups and shows us in picture form examples right here. So that's what variety is all about. It's about choosing different foods within each food group. So for fruits and vegetables, as dietitians, we're teaching people to look at color. So in other words, looking at choosing different fruits and vegetables. If you can get a dark green, a dark orange vegetable in your diet every day, that would be ideal. And fruits, same thing if you can eat more than just, bananas and apples, right? So choosing different fruits within the food group. The next one would be meats and alternatives. I know I see this a lot with my clients, is that often, unless we're vegetarian and sort of by definition following a vegetarian diet, we often don't eat as many of the meat alternatives. So remembering that eggs, beans and lentils, nuts and seeds are just as important as meats themselves. So they offer different nutrients, so to have a mix of the two is a good idea. For grain products, we recommend that you're choosing at least half of your grains as whole grain. And for milk and alternatives, it's remembering that, again, there's those alternatives. So it's not just looking at milk, it's also looking at yogurt, cheese, and also if you choose milk alternatives that are fortified with the same nutrients.
So now when it comes to balance is very important. So in addition to eating regular meals, including a lot of variety, as Trisha talked about, we really want to make sure we have balance. So what that means is that we're having all 3 of our macronutrients. So that's the carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We need all 3 of those. Sometimes, carbohydrates or fat sometimes seems to be the bad guy, but this is really a myth. They're all very important and have important roles in our body. And in fact, with carbohydrates, about half of our intake should come from carbohydrates. That is our main source of fuel, energy, so it's very important. Protein and fat also play a major role in our body. They also help us feel full, so they contribute to that feeling of fullness or satiety. Also, another way to look at balance is looking at your plate. So we have an example here where it's kind of like a lunch or dinner plate, where half of your plate are vegetables. So that would be kind of like Trisha said, ideally 2 different kinds, so variety, different colors. A quarter of your plate would be the starch. It's your rice, different grains. It could also be potato or pasta. And then the other quarter of your plate would be the protein. And Trisha spoke to that, so you're wanting meat, fish, and alternatives would go there in that quarter of the plate. You're also wanting to add a fat, so let's say you're having salad as your vegetables, it would be salad dressing, maybe butter or margarine on your rice or your vegetables. So that's important as well. Then you have your fruit and your milk and alternatives, and that can also, you can sometimes fit that into a snack if it didn't fit into your meal.
So intuitive eating is our last factor, and I actually find that this may be the least considered of the 4 factors, but actually one of the most important. So many of us know, how to make balanced choices in terms of our nutrition, but it's more the intuitive eating piece and really being mindful where we can get stuck. So intuitive eating, another word for it would be mindful eating. So meaning eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full. That should be not all the time. I mean, special holidays and occasions, we're going to step outside of those guidelines. But generally speaking, we should be following our cues. As we mentioned, some of these other factors play a role in recognizing our cues. So following a regular meal pattern allows our body to know what to expect and to know when we're hungry and when we're full. But ultimately, when we're following those cues is what leads us to maintain a healthy weight and a healthy diet. So along with this, we just also want to mention, in terms of emotional eating, so again, we want to be mindful in eating when we're hungry rather than eating when we're bored or when we're sad, as much as possible. So those are really ineffective coping strategies. We know that those don't solve the problem. We actually, in fact, tend to just feel worse after the fact because, whatever problem that's made us sad or whatnot in the first place remains. And now we just feel, even maybe worse potentially for eating for no reason, I guess. So it's really important to look at alternative coping strategies that are healthier and will actually make us feel better in the end.
So kind of tying into that, here is a hunger scale. So we have a card that we used here. And really it's just a scale to kind of show the different levels of hunger and fullness. So ideally wanting to start eating when you're hungry. So that would be about a 4. And then it just kind of shows emotionally what that feels like. So you're recognizing your hunger cues. So again, if we're in tune, we're eating regular balanced meals, and we're in tune with our hunger and fullness, we'll kind of feel like we're getting hungry at that time. That's when you want to start eating, for the most part. And you're wanting to stop when you're around a 7. So you're satisfied, full. And on the other scale, so it's emotionally satisfying. It feels good. We're feeling we've been fed, we feel comfortable. And it's just to point it out, it's also really normal sometimes if we're busy running around that sometimes we get a little bit too hungry, or at certain indulgent meals or around the holidays, something like that, we tend to get overfull, and that's absolutely normal. We just don't want that to be a daily thing. So to wrap it all up, we want, as an adult influencer, to remind the youth that diets don't work. And they don't work for anyone, not just for adolescents, but diets don't work. And they have a lot of negative effects, as discussed today. And it's important to be encouraging to eat regular, balanced meals, making sure there's variety, and also that there's mindful eating experiences, so that intuitive eating. So role modeling is also very important, not just for, so this can be, as an adult influencer, to be role modeling, not dieting, and also following a healthy eating pattern, as we talked about today, and also encouraging the adolescent to also be role modeling to his or her peers, again, not dieting and embracing a healthy lifestyle that includes all foods and embraces what we talked about today. So we just wanted to thank you for joining our webinar. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and there are more webinars to come. Thank you.
Thank you.